Hello, welcome to the Sideboard here at the Modern Open in Louisville. I am Nick Miller alongside Eric Hawkins. How you doing, sir?
How you doing?
Pretty good. Always good to see you. You're playing some sweet decks. We've seen the Abzan company deck go through a lot of iterations. Obviously, it started with Birthing Pod back in the day and has gone through some changes. You're taking that and adding a whole new twist thanks to the Eldrazi Winter, as we're calling it on coverage.
Definitely. It's exciting when you ever get to add something new to an old deck. At least I find so.
So we have the same old song and dance between Kitchen Finks, Anafenza or Malira, and then Viserys here as your sack outlet to gain a bunch of life. But you're taking this deck a whole nother direction. We gotta talk about Teysa and Painter's Servant.
Painter's Servant is great against the Eldrazi as you get to name a color, which in this case you're gonna name black. And when you name a color, their lands don't produce 2 mana for their guys. So we were looking and being like, Painter's Servant is obviously good. Can it combo with anything? And we found Teysa. And when you get to turn everything black, when a creature dies, it makes essentially a Lingering Souls token. And you can use those tokens to exile the giant Eldrazi with your tiny little Lingering Souls tokens.
So it fights on a couple of axes because we've seen people say Painter's Servant, a great card against the Eldrazi deck. But how can you fit it into a deck without just having this 2-mana 1/3 that's floating around?
Yeah, exactly. Like the 1/3 body's not very good against them, so just being like Painter's Servant, eventually their guys are just going to be huge, and it doesn't matter that your Painter's Servant was in play. I guess you slowed them down like a turn or two. Mm-hmm. But with this, you can actually combo out and just never let them have another creature in play. And if you do that, the Eldrazi deck is not very good at fighting in that way.
Take us through the whole route in which you kind of execute this combo.
Absolutely. So the Painter's Servant comes into play, hopefully off a collected company with Teysa. It requires you to have 3 white creatures in play at the time. So we're playing like Voice of Resurgence, Kitchen Finks, and Lingering Souls. So if you have any of those in play, like 3 of those we'll say, you get to remove a creature. When all of those creatures die, it triggers Teysa to make 3 essentially Lingering Souls tokens, spirit tokens. And then you can keep using those because they are both black and white, so they'll keep recuperating themselves to remove more and more creatures.
So then you just snowball through, kill all their creatures, and then you can win however you want at that point.
Bashing them for 3.
Yeah. Now we've got the usual suspects, collected company, and Court of Calling to find your bullet pieces when you need them. Mm-hmm. And other than that, the deck looks pretty similar.
Yep.
What kind of pieces did you cut to fit this in? And are you sacrificing anything to do so?
I'm sacrificing all of like the utility spots. Unfortunately, the Eldrazi and Modern doesn't give you a lot of time. So I found that like having Orzhov Pontiff is great, having Sin Collector is also great, but when most of the games are over on like turn 4 or 5, I just wanted to make it as streamlined as possible with as many combo pieces as possible, so that on my turn 4 or 5, I get my combo as often as possible.
Right. You're just trying to out-combo the other players that are doing broken things.
Exactly.
I noticed you've taken out, a lot of the removal. We don't see Path. We see it in the sideboard, of course, but we don't see Abrupt Decay or any of those other types of removal spells. You're just kind of, here are the creatures, let's do it.
Yep. I just wanted to block with like things like Voice of Resurgence, Kitchen Finks, and then just try to combo them out as fast as possible, like I said, and then when you know what you're playing against and you go to the board, like you can add more removal pieces, but like I didn't want to like mess around with those in the main deck. Okay. So, and then you have Teysa. Like if you get the combo, you have infinite removal, right?
All the removal you could ever need.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, moving to the sideboard, we've of course got your Path to Exiles here hanging out, but you also have another card we've seen pop up thanks to Eldrazi, Big Game Hunter, showing up in all kinds of decks, mostly these core decks that have ways to get them. But you got some pretty sweet interactions here between, pathing and using Big Game Hunter to kill Reality Smashers and such.
Got to do that once.
Everyone that I see is just packing these like combos to do that. They're like, I've done it once or twice and it was awesome.
Yep. I mean, you can't like forget that feeling, right? Where you're just like, path your Reality Smasher, get your other Reality Smasher. You're like, how do you lose this game? Like, it's just great.
And we've seen people kind of adapt the, Wiltleaf Liege or the Loxodon Smiter path with that. But you got some other sweet stuff going on here. Talk about the Revelark Liliana Heretical Healer Fulminator Mage situation you've done as well.
So the way that it works is I've collected companied into Liliana and Fulminator Mage against a Tron player. I use the Fulminator Mage to blow up the Tron piece, causing Liliana to flip. Liliana goes to 3 loyalty, and then using her +2, going into 5 loyalty, discarded Revelark. So that means next turn I get to bring back the Revelark. I had a Viscera Seer to sacrifice it to bring back both Liliana and Fulminator Mage, and just kept on going. Just eventually it was out of lands, and it was great.
Patrick Sullivan would have been very happy.
Yeah.
Of course, you can go the value route with Eternal Witness, kind of do all this over again, so you can kind of do the long game against the grindy decks. You seem to have all your bases covered. Are there really, you feel like you've got a great Eldrazi matchup, otherwise you wouldn't play the deck.
Yep,
Are there any decks you're kind of trying to dodge?
I've made the deck a little weaker to decks like Affinity, which, I mean, in this format isn't totally great, because you will face it a lot, but I feel like it's still a winnable matchup. I don't want to face like decks with like Anger of the Gods, or like just like another deck that's just a combo deck that doesn't use a life total. So like even though you have Malira and Spellskite, like decks like Infect can get you. But other than that, I think you can beat everything. It's just building the board state to beat it, and how much time you have. Yes.
Well, the deck looks great. You're doing pretty well so far. What, 5-2 so far?
5-2. Yep.
So the deck looks pretty solid. Pick up your Painter Servants and your Tasteless Mount. Eric, thanks for joining me here in the sideboard. Stay tuned to StarCityGames.com all weekend long for the action here in Louisville.